Korean mafia boss Daniel Kang Jin-woo had destroyed Mercy Williams once. He'd humiliated her in front of everyone who mattered, accused her of betrayal, ended their engagement without mercy. Just over a year later, he saw her again in a park in Gangnam. She was sitting on a bench with a double stroller beside her, 2 babies. And the moment his eyes fell on them, something inside him shattered, because those babies looked exactly like him, and he knew his past wasn't finished with him. Hey family, before this story begins, I want you to do something real quick. Drop a comment below and tell me where you're watching from. Your comments fuel these stories. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button because what happens next will leave you speechless. Daniel Kang Jin-woo did not stop walking immediately. That alone told him something was wrong. He was not a man who froze in public. He did not hesitate. He did not lose control because of surprises. His life had been built on discipline, calculation, and silence. Yet his steps slowed, then stopped. Across the open park in Gangnam, under trees that cast long afternoon shadows, a woman sat on a bench. Mercy Williams. For a second, his mind rejected it. He had seen her in dreams, in passing reflections, in moments of exhaustion when his guard was down. But this was different. This was not a trick of memory. She was there. Real. Her hair was shorter, her face thinner, but her posture was the same. Straight, calm, guarded. The same way she had always looked when she was trying not to show what she felt. And beside her, Daniel's gaze shifted slightly. A double stroller. 2 small figures inside, mostly hidden by the shade. He felt something tight form in his chest, not panic, not anger. Something colder. His fiancée, Seo Yura, was still holding his arm. "You're not listening again," she said with a light laugh. "I was saying we should invite Chairman Han to the engagement dinner. It would look good politically." He didn't answer. She followed his gaze. "What are you staring at?" He gently removed her hand from his arm. "I'll be back," he said. Back from where? He was already walking. Not fast, not slow, purposeful. Mercy was laughing softly at something on her phone when she felt it. That familiar pressure in her chest, the kind that came when she was being watched. She looked up, and her breath left her. Daniel Kang Jin-woo was walking toward her. For a fraction of a second, she forgot how to breathe. So this is how it happens, she thought. Not dramatic, not loud, just inevitable. Her fingers tightened around the stroller handle. Then she straightened. By the time he stopped in front of her, her face was calm. "Daniel," she said. Her voice was steady. Too steady. "Mercy," he replied. One word. Nothing else. They stood there, facing each other like strangers who shared too much. "History. You're back in Seoul," he said. "Yes. For how long?" "That depends." He studied her face. Not openly, not obviously, the way a man who had learned to read enemies read everything. "You look well," he said. She gave a small nod. "So do you." His gaze drifted almost unwillingly to the stroller, then back to her face. He did not ask. Not yet. She noticed the movement. Her jaw tightened slightly, but she said nothing. Behind him, Seo Yura was approaching, curiosity written clearly on her face. "Jin-woo," she said, stopping beside him. "Who is she?" Daniel did not look away from Mercy. "Someone I used to know." Yura's eyes flicked to the stroller, then back to Mercy, then back to Daniel. "I see." There was a pause, an uncomfortable one. "So," Mercy said quietly, "if there's nothing else—" She placed both hands on the stroller and began to move around him. He stepped aside immediately. No. Resistance. No drama. She passed. But as she did, one of the babies shifted. The blanket slipped just enough. Daniel saw a face. He did not react, not outwardly, but something inside him went very still. He turned his head slightly and watched her walk away. Yura noticed. "Are you just going to let her leave?" she asked. "Yes," he said. "Who is she, really?" He was silent for a moment. "My ex-fiancée." Yura stopped walking. "Your what?" "She's in the past," he said calmly. Yura looked back at Mercy's retreating figure, then at the stroller. "She has children." "Yes." "Are they?" "No." The answer came too quickly, too sharp. Yura looked at him. "You're sure?" He turned to her. His expression was cool, unreadable. "She cheated on me." Yura's lips curved slightly. "Oh, that woman." "Yes." They stood there for a moment. Yura linked her arm with his again. "Come on, we're going to be late." Daniel allowed himself to be pulled away, but his eyes followed Mercy until she disappeared into the crowd. Across the park, Mercy did not look back. Not once, but her hands were trembling on the stroller handle. Only when she was sure she was far enough did she stop. She closed her eyes. Of all the ways this could have happened. She hadn't expected it to hurt like this. Daniel got into his car 20 minutes later. He sat in silence as the city passed by outside the tinted windows. The face he had seen in the stroller would not leave his mind. It meant nothing, he told himself. Nothing. Still. That night, he called his assistant. "Find out why Mercy Williams is back in Seoul," he said. "Who she works for, where she lives, who she's connected to." There was a brief pause. "And the children?" the assistant asked carefully. Daniel's voice was cold, especially the children. Daniel did not sleep that night. He lay on his side, one arm behind his head, staring at the ceiling while the city lights of Seoul flickered faintly through the curtains. Beside him, Seo Yura slept peacefully, or pretended to. Her breathing was too measured, too careful. Daniel had noticed. He always noticed. The image of the stroller would not leave his mind, not the stroller, the face he had seen inside it. He told himself it meant nothing. People resembled other people all the time. The mind searched for patterns where there were none. And Mercy had betrayed him. He had not imagined that. He had not invented the messages, the pictures, the proof. He turned his head slightly and looked at Yura. Her face was calm in sleep, beautiful, perfectly composed, the kind of woman families approved of, the kind of woman who never made mistakes in public. Yet something in his chest remained unsettled. The next morning, Mercy woke before her alarm. The apartment she had rented was small but bright, tucked into a quiet part of Gangnam far from the noise and glass towers. She lay still for a long moment, listening to the soft breathing of her children. Then her phone vibrated. She closed her eyes. Not yet. Please, not yet. But when she picked it up, it was only an email from her new office, a reminder of her start date. Tomorrow. She exhaled slowly and got out of bed. She moved carefully, quietly, not wanting to wake them. But one of the twins, Noah, was already stirring. "Hey," she whispered, lifting him gently. "Good morning, little troublemaker." His sister Nora followed seconds later with a small, offended cry. Mercy smiled despite herself. She changed them, fed them, and sat on the floor with them while the morning light filled the room. Only when they were calm again did her thoughts return to yesterday, to Daniel. The way he had looked at her, not angry, not soft, just searching. That scared her more than anger would have. She had told herself for over a year that she would be ready for this moment. She had lied. Across the city, Daniel was already in his office. "Find everything," he said calmly into the phone. "I want a full report." His assistant, Mr. Choi, hesitated. "On Mercy Williams?" Yes. And the children? A pause. Yes. How far back? Daniel's eyes were on the city skyline. From the day she left Seoul. Another pause. Understood. He ended the call and sat back. He did not feel guilty. He felt cautious, which was worse. Later that afternoon, Yura walked into his office unannounced. She did that often. Working too hard again? She asked sweetly, setting a coffee down in front of him. He did not look at her. What do you want? She smiled as if he had made a joke. Just checking on my fiancé. He finally looked up. She sat on the edge of his desk. So, she said lightly, your ex-fiancé. He said nothing. You never told me she might reappear. I didn't know she would. She traced the rim of her cup. She has children. Yes. Yura tilted her head. Strange, isn't it? So soon after leaving. Daniel's gaze sharpened slightly. Do you find that strange? He asked. Just surprising, she said quickly. That's all. There was a brief silence. She's working in Seoul again, Yura added casually. He looked at her. How do you know that? Her smile didn't falter. People talk. He studied her face for a moment, then looked back at his screen. You shouldn't concern yourself with her. Of course, Yura said. She's in the past. She stood. I'll see you tonight. After she left, Daniel remained still for a long time. People talk. Yura had never been the kind of woman who relied on people talking. Meanwhile, Yura got into her car and closed the door. Her smile vanished instantly. Her fingers tightened around her phone. She's back, she said quietly. The man on the other end was silent. And she has children, Yura continued. I don't know whose they are yet, but I want to know. Another pause. Find out everything, she said. Where she lives, where she works, who she's been with. She ended the call and leaned back. Her heart was beating too fast. This was not supposed to happen. She was supposed to be gone. Forever. That evening, Mercy sat in a small cafe with a colleague she had just met from her new office. You moved here recently? The woman asked. Yes, Mercy said. Just last week. With kids? The woman smiled. You're brave. Mercy laughed softly. Or foolish. Is your husband Korean? Mercy's hand paused around her cup. I'm not married. Oh, sorry. It's fine. Later that night, when Mercy put the twins to bed, she stood in the doorway for a long time, watching them sleep. You're safe, she whispered. I promise. She believed that, or at least she wanted to. 2 days later, Mr. Choi returned to Daniel's office. We have preliminary information, he said. Daniel looked up. Go on. Mercy Williams left Seoul 13 months ago. She moved abroad for a short period, then returned to Asia. She started working remotely for an international firm. She returned to Seoul 3 weeks ago. And the children? They were born 11 months ago. Daniel's fingers stilled. 11 months. That means she was already pregnant when she left, Mr. Choi added carefully. Daniel said nothing. There's no record of a husband, no registered partner. And the father? We're still looking. Daniel nodded slowly. That night he stood on his balcony with a glass of untouched whiskey. 11 months. The numbers lined up too neatly. He pushed the thought away immediately. She cheated. He had. Proof. He had seen it. Yet, he closed his eyes. Somewhere in the city, Mercy was holding her children close, telling herself that the past was over. And somewhere else, Yura was sitting in her room, staring at her reflection, whispering to herself, This time, I won't let you take him from me. Daniel did not go to see Mercy himself. He never did things like that. Instead, he sat in the back seat of his car one afternoon while it remained parked across the street from a modest office building in Gangnam. Through the tinted window, he watched people come and go. "Are you sure this is her workplace?" he asked calmly. "Yes, sir," the driver replied. "She works on the 7th floor. She usually leaves around 6. Daniel nodded. He didn't say anything else. He waited. At 5:47, Mercy appeared at the entrance. She looked different in office clothes, more professional, more distant. She paused, adjusted her bag on her shoulder, then checked her phone. A few seconds later, a young woman joined her, talking animatedly. They laughed. Daniel's jaw tightened slightly. "She has a babysitter?" he asked. "Yes," Mr. Choi replied from the front seat. "An older woman, lives in the same building." He watched Mercy walk away. She didn't look back. "Follow her," he said. The car moved slowly, keeping a careful distance. They followed her to a small grocery store, then to a pharmacy, then back to her apartment building. Nothing unusual, just ordinary life. Ordinary. That word bothered him more than it should have. Later that night, Yura was waiting for him in his apartment. "You've been busy," she said lightly. "Work," he replied. She walked over and straightened his tie even though he wasn't wearing one. "I heard something interesting today," she said. He looked at her. "You always do." She smiled. "Your ex is working at HJ International, on the marketing." Sighed. So my cousin is on the board," she said. "Small world." He studied her face. "Why are you telling me this?" She shrugged. "Just conversation." There was a pause. "Have you seen her again?" Yura asked. "No." A lie, a small one, but it was still a lie. Yura nodded slowly. "Good." She leaned in and kissed his cheek. "I don't like unfinished stories." Neither do I, he thought. Mercy sat on the floor that night, sorting laundry while the twins crawled around her. Her phone buzzed. It was her colleague. "Are you free tomorrow evening?" the woman asked over the phone. "Some of us are going for drinks." Mercy hesitated. "I have the kids. Bring the babysitter. You need a life." Mercy smiled. "I'll think about it." She hung up and leaned back against the couch. A life. She looked at the twins. They were her life. Still, something about being back in Seoul made her uneasy, like she was being watched. The next day, Daniel received a file. Mr. Choi placed it on his desk. "Everything we could find so far." Daniel opened it. Inside were photos. Mercy entering her building, Mercy leaving for work, Mercy at the grocery store, Mercy at the park again, with the stroller. He flipped through them slowly. "She doesn't see anyone regularly," Mr. Choi said. "No man, no visitors except the babysitter and a colleague from work." Daniel said nothing. He stopped at one photo. One of the twins was laughing. The child's eyes were very clear in the picture. Too clear. "Do you know the blood type?" Daniel asked suddenly. Mr. Choi blinked. "Of the children?" "Yes." "We're trying to get hospital records," he said carefully. "It may take some time." Daniel nodded. Yura, meanwhile, was having her own meeting. "So you're sure she's back?" her friend asked over lunch. "Yes," Yura said, stirring her drink. "And she brought complications." "Children?" "Yes." Her friend's eyes widened. "Are they, I don't know," Yura said softly, "but I won't take chances." "What are you gonna do?" Yura smiled. "I'll remind her why she left." 2 days later, Mercy was leaving her office when a familiar voice called her name. "Mercy Williams." She stopped, turned. Yura stood there in a perfectly cut coat, smiling politely. "Do you remember me?" Yura asked. Mercy's heart sank. Of course she did. "How could I forget?" Mercy replied calmly. "I was hoping we could talk," Yura said. Woman to woman. Mercy hesitated, then nodded. 5 minutes. They went to a nearby cafe. The moment they sat down, Yura said, "You look, well." "So do you," Mercy replied. "I heard you're back in Seoul for good." "I'm here for work." "And the children?" Mercy's eyes hardened. "What about them?" "They're beautiful," Yura said lightly. "Daniel didn't mention them. He doesn't need to." Yura smiled, still so defensive. Mercy leaned back. "Why are you here?" Yura's eyes flickered. "I just wanted to say, welcome back, and to remind you." "Remind me of what?" "Of the past." Mercy stood. "Conversation's over." Yura watched her go, her smile fading. That night, Daniel received another update. "We're close to accessing hospital data," Mr. Choi said, "but we'll need authorization or other means." Daniel looked at the city again. "Do it quietly," he said. He ended the call and stood in silence. Somewhere, a woman was trying to protect a life she built without him. And somewhere else, another woman was trying to make sure that life never touched his again. And Daniel was standing exactly in the middle. Daniel did not like uncertainty. He had built his entire life on controlling variables, people, situations, outcomes. But for the first time in years, something sat in his chest that refused to be categorized or dismissed. 11 months. The number repeated itself in his mind like a quiet warning. He told himself it was coincidence. He told himself Mercy had betrayed him, that she had been with someone else, that the proof he'd seen back then had been real. And yet, he picked up his phone. "Any progress?" he asked calmly. "We're working on it," Mr. Choi replied. "The hospital where the children were born is private. Their records are protected, but we found the facility." "Which one?" "Seongmin Women's Medical Center." Daniel closed his eyes briefly. That was the hospital his family used. "Get me access," he said. There was a pause. "Discreetly?" "Always." He ended the call. Across the city, Mercy was having a bad day. Nora wouldn't stop crying. Noah refused to eat. The babysitter had called in sick, and her head was full of thoughts she didn't want. She stood in the kitchen trying to calm Nora when her phone rang, an unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. "Hello?" "Mercy Williams," Yura's voice said smoothly. "We need to talk." Mercy's grip tightened on the phone. "I thought we already did." "I don't think we finished," Yura replied. "I'm nearby. Let's meet." "I'm busy." "So am I," Yura said. "But this is important." Mercy was silent for a moment. "Send me the address," she said finally. They met in a quiet, expensive cafe. Yura arrived first. She was dressed elegantly, as always. "You're late," she said. "I have children," Mercy replied calmly. "They come first." Yura smiled thinly. "Of course." They ordered drinks. Then Yura said softly, "Why did you come back?" "I already told you. Work." "And nothing else?" "No." Yura stirred her coffee. "You know, Daniel hates unfinished business." Mercy looked at her. "So do you." Yura's eyes flickered. "I just don't want old misunderstandings to complicate things." "There was no misunderstanding," Mercy said quietly. "I was accused and thrown away. Yura leaned in, and you left. You made sure I had no choice." For a moment, Yura said nothing. Then she smiled again. "Be careful, Mercy. Seoul is not kind to single mothers." Mercy's eyes hardened. "Is that a threat?" "A warning," Yura replied sweetly. Mercy stood. "We're done." As she walked out, her hands were shaking. Meanwhile, Daniel sat in a private room inside Seongmin Medical Center. The director himself was speaking to him. "Of course we respect privacy laws," the man said nervously. But for you, Mr. Kang, we can check certain things. Daniel's voice was calm. I don't need names, I need dates. The director nodded and typed quickly. 2 children were born here 11 months and 2 weeks ago, he said. Twins, boy and girl. Daniel's jaw tightened slightly. And the mother? The man hesitated. Daniel looked at him. Mercy Williams, the director said quietly. The room felt suddenly smaller. And the father? Daniel asked. There is no father listed. Daniel said nothing. His fingers curled slowly. Blood type? He asked. O positive for both children. Daniel's eyes darkened. His was O positive. So was Mercy's. That meant nothing. It also meant everything. He stood up. Thank you. He left without another word. That night, he sat alone in his office long after everyone else had gone home. On his desk were the hospital notes. No father listed. The dates, the blood types, the numbers lined up too perfectly. He remembered the night before their wedding, the way she had looked at him, the way she had trusted him. He pushed the thought away. She cheated. She had to have. Otherwise, his phone buzzed. It was Yura. Are you working late again? She asked. Yes. I'll wait up. No need. A pause. You're distant lately. I'm busy. Another pause. Is this about her? No. Another lie. Yura smiled on the other end. Good. When the call ended, her smile vanished. She picked up her own phone. Speed things up, she said coldly. I don't like where this is going. 2 days later, Mercy came home to find her apartment door slightly open. Her heart jumped into her throat. She froze, then slowly pushed it open. Everything looked normal, too normal. She walked inside carefully. The twins were with the babysitter. She checked every room. Nothing was missing. Nothing was disturbed. But on the table in the living room, there was an envelope. Her name was written on it. Inside was a single photo, a photo of her, in Daniel's old house, from the past, the day she had been accused. Her hands started to shake. At the bottom, a note was written. Some things should stay buried. Mercy sank into a chair. For the first time since returning to Seoul, she was truly afraid. Mercy did not sleep. She sat on the couch with the lights on, the photo and the note lying on the table in front of her like a threat that refused to disappear. Some things should stay buried. She knew exactly who had sent it, but she had no proof, and that was the worst part. In the morning, she took the twins to the babysitter and went straight to work. She tried to focus. She failed. Every time someone walked past her desk, she looked up. Every time her phone buzzed, her heart jumped. During lunch, she finally called a locksmith. I need my locks changed, she said quietly. Today. Meanwhile, Daniel sat in his office staring at a sealed envelope on his desk. Inside it was a blank consent form for a DNA test. He hadn't filled it out. He hadn't even touched it. Yet. He remembered the hospital director's words. 11 months and 2 weeks. He remembered the blood types. He remembered the face he had seen in the stroller. This is irrational, he said to himself, but his hand still moved toward the envelope. He stopped. Not yet. Not until he was sure. He picked up his phone instead. Find out who accessed Mercy Williams' apartment yesterday, he said calmly. And how? Yes, sir, Mr. Choi replied. That afternoon, Yura was already waiting for him again. You've been quiet, she said, sitting down across from him. I'm always quiet. She smiled. Not like this. He didn't respond. I ran into Mercy the other day, Yura continued lightly. I know. Her smile stiffened for half a second. Do you? Yes. Then you know she's struggling. She seems fine. Yura studied him. You still care. He met her gaze. No. Another lie. Yura laughed softly. You're not very good at lying to me, Jin-woo. She reached across the table and took his hand. Don't worry. I'll handle it. His fingers tensed slightly. Handle what? The past. Across the city, Mercy came home to find the locksmith waiting. By evening, her locks were changed and she felt slightly safer. But safety was an illusion. The next day, her babysitter didn't show up. She called. No answer. She had to take the twins to work. Her boss was kind, but clearly not happy. Just today, he said. But please, make other arrangements. She nodded, embarrassed. When she got home, there was another envelope under her door. This time, inside was a printout, her work schedule, highlighted. Her blood ran cold. She looked around the hallway. Nothing. Someone was playing with her. That same evening, Daniel received a report. Someone hired a private investigator to look into Mercy Williams. Mr. Choi said, Not us? Daniel's eyes sharpened. Who? The trail leads to a shell company connected to Miss Seo. Silence. So, Daniel said slowly, she's the one watching her. Yes. He closed his eyes briefly. When did it start? 2 days ago. Right after the park. His jaw tightened. That night, Yura was in an especially good mood. We should go shopping tomorrow, she said, for the wedding. He looked at her. Is there something you want to tell me? She blinked innocently. About what? About Mercy. Her smile faded slightly. Why would I tell you anything about her? Because you're interfering in her life. The air changed. Yura looked at him carefully. I'm protecting ours. By threatening her. I didn't threaten her. Then why is she receiving messages? Yura stood. Are you taking her side now? I'm asking you a question, and I'm telling you, she said coldly, that she doesn't belong in our world. He stood as well. Stay out of it. Her eyes widened slightly. Then she smiled again. Of course. But inside, she was shaking with anger. Later that night, Daniel stood alone in his bathroom, staring at his reflection. The envelope was in his hand, the DNA consent form. He tore it open. Across the city, Mercy sat on her bed, holding her children close. She didn't know why. She just knew something bad was coming, and somewhere between them, a woman was preparing to fight for everything she had stolen. Daniel did not tell anyone when he signed the consent form. Not Yura, not his family, not even Mr. Choi. He only told one person, the hospital director. I want this handled quietly, Daniel said, his voice calm, his eyes cold. No record, no trace. The director nodded nervously. Of course, Mr. Kang. And I don't want the mother contacted. Understood. Daniel ended the call and stared at the city through the glass wall of his office. Once this was done, there would be no turning back. Across the city, Mercy's life was starting to unravel in small, cruel ways. Her office computer malfunctioned, and she lost a full day's work. Her supervisor began to look at her differently. A polite warning was given about professional focus. Then one morning, her landlord called. There's been a complaint, he said awkwardly, about noise and children. Mercy closed her eyes. They're babies. They don't... I know, he said quickly, but the building is particular. Maybe you should consider moving soon. When she hung up, her hands were shaking. That afternoon, she took the twins to the park again. Not the same one, a smaller one. She needed air. She sat on a bench and watched them sleep. Mommy's got you, she whispered. I won't let anyone hurt you. Behind the scenes, Yura was no longer pretending. Make her uncomfortable, she said into her phone. I don't care how. I want her gone. The man on the other end hesitated. And if Mr. Kang finds out? He won't, Yura replied coldly, And if he does, I'll handle him too. 2 days later, Mercy's babysitter quit. I'm sorry, the older woman said. Someone came to see me. They said things about you. I don't want trouble. What things? Mercy asked, her heart racing. But the woman only shook her head. That night, Mercy cried for the first time in over a year. Not loudly, not hysterically, silently, because she was tired and scared and angry, and she had no idea who was attacking her. Daniel found out about the babysitter the next morning. Yura's people, Mr. Choi said quietly. Again. Daniel's face went very still. That's enough, he said. He picked up his phone and called Yura. Call off your dogs, he said without preamble. There was a pause. What dogs? Don't play with me. Silence. Then, why do you care so much? She asked softly. I don't. You're lying. Stop. Or what? She asked. Daniel's voice dropped. Or you'll regret it. Yura laughed. Are you threatening me for her? He ended the call. That same afternoon, the hospital director called. We've arranged the sample collection, he said carefully, from the children's medical records, and from you. When? Daniel asked. Tomorrow morning. Do it. He ended the call and sat in silence. Tomorrow. The next day, Mercy received an email from her building management. Her lease would not be renewed. She had 30 days to leave. She stared at the screen, numb. That evening, she took the twins and went to the only place she could think of, her colleague's apartment. I don't know what's happening, Mercy said, her voice shaking. But someone is trying to push me out. Her colleague frowned. Do you have enemies? Mercy thought of Yura, thought of Daniel. She shook her head. No. But she was lying. Across the city, Daniel sat in a private clinic room while a nurse drew his blood. He did not flinch. This will take a few days, the nurse said. He nodded. When he left the hospital, his phone buzzed. Mr. Choi. It's getting worse for her, he said quietly. Yura is escalating. Daniel closed his eyes. Protect her, he said, without her knowing. There was a pause. And if Yura asks? Daniel's voice was ice. She won't. That night, Daniel stood on his balcony again, waiting for results and for a truth that might destroy everything. Daniel received the call in the middle of a meeting. He did not answer it immediately. He waited until the room was empty. Then he closed the door and picked up. Yes, he said. The hospital director's voice was careful. The results are in. There was a pause. Speak. The children are yours. The words were calm. They still hit like a gunshot. Daniel said nothing. For a long moment he could not hear anything except the sound of his own breathing. Mr. Kang? The director asked. I heard you, Daniel said quietly. He ended the call. He stood there staring at the wall. Then slowly, he sat down. They were his, both of them. Mercy had never cheated. She had never betrayed him. She had left because he had destroyed her, because he had believed a lie, because he had chosen the wrong woman. His hands clenched. The room felt too small. Every memory came back at once. Her face when he accused her, her voice when she begged him to believe her, the way she had looked when he told her to leave, and the night before the wedding. He closed his eyes. The weight of it crushed him. He had lost a year of his children's lives. He had lost her, and it was his fault. He stood up abruptly and walked out of the office. His men followed, confused. Cancel everything, he said. I'm not available. He got into his car. Take me to Seo Yura. At the same time, Mercy was at her colleague's apartment, trying to cook dinner in a borrowed kitchen. The twins were on a blanket on the floor. She was exhausted. Her phone rang, an unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. Hello? Silence. Then the call ended. Her heart started to race. She checked the door. Locked. Still, she felt like something was coming. Daniel arrived at Yura's house less than 20 minutes later. She was surprised to see him. Jinwoo, she said, smiling. You should have called. He walked in without returning the smile. We need to talk. Her smile faded slightly. You're scaring me? Good. He looked at her. Really looked at her. How long have you been lying to me? He asked. She blinked. What are you talking about? Mercy. Her eyes flickered, just for a second. That was enough. What about her? She asked. You said she betrayed me. She did. You forged the evidence. Her face changed. Are you accusing me of something serious? I'm not accusing you, he said quietly. I'm telling you. She laughed. You're losing your mind. The children are mine, he said. The room went silent. Yura's face went pale. That's impossible. They are mine, he repeated. She took a step back. You're lying. He walked closer. You knew. I didn't, she said quickly. I swear. You destroyed her, he said. You destroyed me. Tears filled her eyes. I did it because I love you. He looked at her like he was seeing her for the first time. Get out of my life. Her lips trembled. You don't mean that. I mean it. You can't just... I can, he said. And I will. She reached for him. Jinwoo, please. Touch me again, he said coldly, and you'll regret it. She froze. He turned and walked away. That night, Yura sat alone in her house, shaking with rage and fear. This isn't over, she whispered. Meanwhile, Daniel sat in his car outside Mercy's colleague's building. He did not go in. He watched the lights. He did not know what to say. For the first time in his life, he was afraid. Afraid she would hate him. Afraid she would never forgive him. Afraid he was already too late. Daniel did not go home that night. He stayed in his office until dawn, staring at the city, replaying everything he had destroyed. The children are yours. The words would not leave his mind. He had spent years believing Mercy had betrayed him, years justifying his cruelty, years building a life with a woman who had lied to him from the Aoi beginning. And Mercy. She had gone through pregnancy alone, birth alone, fear alone. Because of him. He closed his eyes. For the first time since he had taken over the organization, Daniel Kang Jin-woo felt something dangerously close to helplessness. At 7 a.m, he called Mr. Choi. I want men on her at all times, he said, not to scare her, to protect her. Yes, sir. And I want Yura watched as well. There was a pause. Openly? No, she must not know. That same morning, Mercy woke up with a strange feeling in her chest, like the air had shifted, like something invisible was standing closer than before. She shook it off and focused on the twins. Her colleague had insisted she move in for a few days, just until things calmed down, she had said. Mercy didn't argue. She didn't feel safe in her own apartment anymore. When she left the building with the twins, she didn't notice the black sedan, 2 cars behind her. But she did notice the man who stepped in front of her at the crosswalk. He almost bumped into her. Sorry, he said quickly, stepping aside. She nodded and moved on. She didn't see him lift a hand to his ear. Yura, meanwhile, was not sleeping either. She sat in her living room, staring at her phone. Daniel had not come home. He had not called. He had not answered her messages. For the first time since she had entered his life, she felt something slipping out of her control. She called the same man she had been using before. I need her gone, she said quietly, not scared. Gone. There was hesitation on the other end. That's risky. So is losing everything, Yura replied. Make it look like an accident. Daniel arrived at Mercy's office just before lunchtime. He did not go inside. He waited in the car. When she came out with her colleague, he saw her. Really saw her. She looked thinner, tired, but still beautiful. And when she laughed at something her colleague said, something inside him twisted painfully. He did not follow her. He didn't need to. He already had men doing that. Instead, he went to his mother's house. She looked at him sharply the moment he walked in. You look like a ghost, she said. I made a mistake, he replied. She studied him. That's new. I destroyed something important. She was silent for a moment. And now I don't know how to fix it. She looked at him for a long time. Who is she? He didn't answer, but she already knew. That afternoon, Mercy went out alone to buy groceries. She left the twins with her colleague. She didn't notice the car that slowed down near her. She didn't notice the man watching her from across the street. She only noticed the sound, a sharp screech of tires. She turned just in time to see a car swerving toward her. Everything happened at once. Someone grabbed her arm and yanked her backward. She fell. The car missed her by inches and slammed into a pole. People screamed. Someone shouted. Mercy's heart was trying to tear itself out of her chest. She looked up. A stranger was holding her arm. You okay? He asked quickly. She nodded, shaking. By the time she looked again, the car was already gone. That night, Daniel got the call. They tried to hurt her, Mr. Choi said. Daniel's face went completely cold. Who? We can't prove it yet, Mr. Choi said carefully, but it has Yura's signature. Daniel closed his eyes. She crossed the line, he said. Across the city, Yura sat in her dark living room, staring at her phone. Did you do it? She asked. Yes, the man replied, but she survived. Yura's hand tightened around the phone. Then try again, she said. Mercy did not leave the apartment the next day. Her colleague insisted. You were almost killed, she said. You're not going anywhere. Mercy tried to laugh it off. I'm fine. You're not, her colleague said firmly. And until we know what's going on, you're staying here. Mercy didn't argue. She stayed inside with the twins, watching every shadow. By afternoon, her phone rang. Unknown number. She ignored it. It rang again, then again. Finally, she answered. Hello? Mercy. Her chest tightened. She knew that voice. I told you not to contact me, she said. I didn't cause what happened, Daniel replied quietly. Then why is it happening? Because someone wants to scare you. Someone, she repeated bitterly. You mean your fiancé? Silence. That was answer enough. I'm sending someone to move you and the children to a safer place, Daniel said. No, it's not a request. Yes, it is, she said, and the answer is no. You were almost killed. And whose fault is that? She asked. His voice dropped. Mine. There was a pause. Let me protect you, he said. She laughed softly. You already did enough. She hung up. 2 hours later, there was a knock at the door. Her colleague went to check. Mercy heard raised voices, then silence. Then her colleague came back, pale. He's here, she whispered. Who? She didn't need the answer. Daniel stood in the doorway, dressed in black, looking like he hadn't slept. You shouldn't be here, Mercy said. I know. Then leave. I can't. They stared at each other. The twins began to cry. Mercy turned to them automatically. Daniel watched her. Watched the way she picked them up. Watched the way she soothed them. Something inside him broke all over again. Are you done? She asked coldly. No, he said. We need to talk. There is nothing to talk about. There is everything to talk about." She walked past him, carrying the twins into the bedroom. He followed. She turned on him sharply. "Do not follow me." "Mercy, you lost the right to say my name." He stopped. They stood there facing each other, the air thick with things that could not be said. "You're not safe," he said finally. "Neither was I the day you destroyed my life." His jaw tightened. "I made a mistake." She stared at him. "You didn't make a mistake. You made a choice." He had no answer to that. "I know you hate me," he said. "I deserve it." "Yes," she said simply. "I'm not here to take anything from you," he said. "I'm here to stop her." "She started all of this because of you," Mercy said. "You're the reason she has power over my life." He closed his eyes. "I won't let her hurt you again." She shook her head. "You don't get to be my hero." He looked at the twins, then back at her. "Are they—" She cut him off instantly. "No." The lie burned in her throat. "They're none of your business." He nodded slowly. "Fine," he said. "But I'm still protecting you." She laughed bitterly. "You think you can just decide that?" "Yes," he said. They stared at each other. Then his phone rang. He answered. "Yes." A pause. "Where?" Another pause. "I'll be there." He ended the call and looked at Mercy. "Yura is trying something else," he said. "What?" He didn't answer. "I'm not leaving," she said. "You're not staying here," he replied. They stood there, locked in a silent battle of wills, and for the first time since they had seen each other again, neither of them moved away. Daniel did not leave Mercy's colleague's apartment without putting men in the hallway, at the building entrance, and on the street. Mercy noticed. "You think this will make me feel better?" she asked coldly. "It will make you alive," he replied. She didn't answer. That night she barely slept. Neither did he. At 3 in the morning, Mr. Choi called. "They moved," he said. "Yura's people." "Where?" Daniel asked. "We lost one of the tails. Another is in the hospital." Daniel's voice went very still. "How?" "Hit and run." Daniel closed his eyes. "So she's done pretending," he said. "No," Mr. Choi replied. "She's escalating." At 6 in the morning, Mercy was feeding the twins when the power went out. The apartment fell into darkness. Her heart jumped. "Stay where you are," a voice said from the hallway. It was one of Daniel's men. Then she heard shouting, a crash, something breaking. Her heart started pounding. She grabbed the twins. "Mercy!" Daniel's voice came through her phone. "Get out, now!" "What's happening?" she whispered. "Someone cut the power. They're trying to get in." Her blood went cold. "Follow my men," he said. "Don't argue." She didn't. She ran. They took the stairs, down 6 floors, out the back, into a waiting car. The moment the door closed, the building exploded with noise. Sirens, shouting, chaos. Mercy was shaking so badly she couldn't hold the bottle for Nora. Daniel arrived 5 minutes later. The hallway was destroyed. One of his men was bleeding. "Alive?" he asked. "Yes," Mr. Choi said. "Barely." Daniel's jaw tightened. He got back into his car. "Where are they?" "On the way to the safe house." "Good." He closed his eyes. Across the city, Yura threw her phone against the wall. "They were supposed to be alone," she hissed. "They weren't," the man replied. "He moved faster than we expected." "Then change the plan," she said coldly. "I don't care how. I want her broken." Mercy arrived at the safe house in shock. It was a quiet, heavily guarded apartment. She sat on the couch, holding the twins, staring at nothing. Daniel walked in 20 minutes later. The moment she saw him, something in her snapped. "You said you would stop her," she said, her voice shaking. You said you would protect us." "I am," he replied. "They almost killed us." He had no answer. She stood up. "Get her away from me. Get her away from my children." His eyes darkened. "I will." She looked at him, really looked at him. "And if you can't? Then I'll destroy her." There was no hesitation in his voice. That scared her more than anything. Later that night, Daniel went to see Yura. She was waiting for him. "You came," she said. "Yes," he replied, "because you still care. Because you crossed a line." She laughed. "I crossed it for you." "You crossed it for yourself." Her eyes filled with tears. "I did everything for you." "You did everything to me," he said. She stepped closer. "If I can't have you, neither can she." He looked at her for a long moment. "You've already lost." Her smile trembled. "We'll see." That night, Mercy sat alone in the safe house, watching her children sleep, and for the first time, she understood something terrible. This war was not going to end quietly. Mercy did not sleep. She sat on the edge of the bed in the safe house, watching the slow rise and fall of her children's chests, listening to the quiet hum of the air conditioner and the distant footsteps of guards outside the door. Every sound made her tense. Every shadow felt like a threat. When morning came, she felt older, tired in a way sleep could not fix. There was a knock on the door. She stiffened. "Mercy," Daniel's voice said quietly. "We need to talk." Her fingers curled into the blanket. "There's nothing left to say." "Yes," he replied. "There is." She didn't answer. After a moment, the door opened slowly and he stepped in. He looked worse than she had ever seen him. His eyes were red, his face drawn, his posture not the unshakable wall it used to be. He closed the door behind him. "I found out everything," he said. She didn't look at him. "I don't care." "You should," he said, "because it changes everything." She laughed softly, without humor. "It changes nothing." He walked closer, then stopped, as if afraid to get too near. "Yura forged the evidence," he said. "All of it. The messages, the photos, the witness." Her breath caught, but she didn't turn. "I didn't know," he continued. "I believed her. I believed what I saw. I thought you betrayed me." She stood up slowly, turned to face him. "And that made it okay to destroy me?" she asked quietly. "No," he said immediately. "Nothing makes it okay." Her eyes were bright with unshed tears. "You didn't just break up with me," she said. "You humiliated me. You made me stand there while people whispered. You threw me away like I was nothing." "I know," he said. His voice broke. "I know, and I will regret that for the rest of my life." She shook her head. "You don't get to regret it. You got to move on. I got to survive." He closed his eyes. "I didn't move on," he said. "I was just empty." She laughed bitterly. How poetic. He took a breath. "The children are mine." The words fell into the room like glass. Her world tilted. "What?" she whispered. "I did a DNA test," he said, "without you knowing. I'm sorry, but they're mine. Both of them." For a moment, she couldn't breathe. "You had no right," she said, her voice shaking. "You had no right to touch their lives." "I know," he said, "but I needed to know. And now that I do." "Now what?" she demanded. "You think that changes something? You think you get to walk back in and play father?" "No," he said. "I think I have to. Earn the right to even stand in the same room as them." Her tears finally fell. "I did everything alone," she said. "Everything. The sickness, the fear, the birth, the nights when they wouldn't stop crying. All of it. and you were living your life with the woman who destroyed me." He went down on one knee in front of her, not like a king, like a man who had lost everything. "I know," he said, "and I will spend the rest of my life trying to make it right." She stepped back. "Don't promise me a lifetime," she said. "You couldn't even give me trust." They stood there in silence. Then there was shouting outside. Daniel's phone rang. He answered. "What happened?" A pause. His face went cold. "She's trying to run," Mr. Choi said. "Yura, she's trying to leave the country." Daniel closed his eyes. "She left you one last gift," Mr. Choi added. "She sent the old files, the fake evidence, to Mercy's office email." Mercy stared at him. "What?" He looked at her. "She wants to hurt you one last time." They went to the laptop. Mercy's hands were shaking as she opened the email. There it was, everything, the messages, the photos, and attached, a confession, a recording. Yura's voice. "I had to do it. He would never look at me if you were still there." Mercy collapsed into the chair. It was real. All of it had been a lie. She covered her face and started to cry. Not loud, not dramatically, just broken. Daniel stood behind her, not touching her. "I'm sorry," he said again. "I'm so sorry." She didn't answer. Across the city, Yura sat in a private terminal, watching the news on her phone. They were already looking for her. She smiled bitterly. "I almost won," she whispered. Yura was arrested at the airport. She did not scream. She did not beg. She stood there in dark glasses and a tailored coat while officers approached her and asked her to come with them. "What is this about?" she asked calmly. "Fraud, conspiracy, attempted murder, and obstruction of justice," one of them replied. Her lips twitched. "So he chose her," she said quietly. They took her away. By the time the news reached Daniel, he was already waiting. He did not feel relief. He felt empty. When Mr. Choi told him she had confessed and handed over everything, Daniel only nodded. "Make sure she never comes near Mercy or the children again," he said. "Yes, sir." Daniel did not visit her. Not once. He sent a lawyer and a message. "Do not contact me again. Ever." Yura cried when she read it, not because she had lost, but because she had finally realized she never truly had him. Mercy watched the news in silence. Her colleague turned off the TV. "It's over," she said gently. Mercy didn't answer. Over didn't mean healed. That evening, Daniel came to the safe house. He did not walk in like he owned the place. He stood at the door and waited. When Mercy opened it, they looked at each other in silence. "I'm leaving," she said. "Where?" he asked. "Away from here. I need space." "I won't stop you." She studied his face. "You would have. Before." He nodded. "Before, I thought I had the right. And now? Now I know I don't." They stood there for a long moment. "I'm not taking the children away from you," she said quietly, "but I'm not giving them to you either. I understand. I'm not ready to forgive you. I know." She hesitated. "But you can see them. Sometimes. When I say so." His breath caught. "Thank you," he said. She shook her head. "Don't thank me, earn it." They moved out of the safe house 2 days later. Daniel bought her a quiet apartment in a different part of the city. She tried to refuse. He said, "It's not a gift, it's protection." She accepted, reluctantly. The first time he came to see the twins, he didn't touch them. He just sat on the floor and watched them play. Mercy watched him too. He looked awkward, almost human. "Daniel," she said one evening when the twins were asleep. "Yes?" "You don't get to fix this fast." I know. You don't get to buy your way back into our lives. I know. And you don't get to assume I'll ever love you again. He swallowed. I know. She looked at him for a long time. But, she said quietly, I won't lie. Some part of me never stopped. His chest tightened. She turned away. That part is very tired. That night, Daniel sat in his car for a long time before driving away. He realized something. Winning Mercy back would be harder than any war he had ever fought, and he was willing to lose 1,000 times if it meant not losing her forever. Mercy did not forgive Daniel quickly, and Daniel did not expect her to. He moved like a guest in her life, careful, respectful, always asking before stepping closer. He came twice a week at first, sometimes just to sit on the floor and watch the twins play, sometimes to bring groceries, sometimes to fix something broken in the apartment. He never stayed long, and he never touched the children unless Mercy said it was okay. The first time Noah crawled into his lap by himself, Daniel froze like a man who didn't trust his own happiness. Mercy watched from the kitchen. She said nothing, but her chest hurt in a strange, quiet way. Daniel started changing his life in ways Mercy did not ask for and did not see at first. He canceled deals that involved people like Yura. He cleaned out parts of his organization. He stepped away from certain businesses. His mother noticed. You're bleeding, Power, she said one evening. I'm gaining something more important, he replied. She studied him. Is it her? He didn't answer, but she already knew. One evening, Mercy came home to find him sitting on the floor with the twins, building a tower out of blocks. Noah knocked it over and laughed. Daniel laughed too. It sounded strange, unfamiliar, almost shy. She stood in the doorway for a long time, watching. Then she said quietly, Dinner's almost ready. He looked up. Do you want me to leave? She hesitated, then said, You can stay. It wasn't forgiveness, but it was something. Weeks passed, then months. The fear slowly faded. The guards became less visible. The nightmares became less frequent. Mercy started working properly again. Her life began to feel almost normal. One afternoon, she took the twins to the same park, the one where everything had started again. She didn't plan to meet Daniel there. He was already there when she arrived. He stood when he saw her. I was just leaving, he said. You don't have to, she replied. They sat on opposite ends of the bench at first, then a little closer, then a little closer. The twins played in the grass. For a long time, neither of them spoke. Finally, Mercy said, Do you still love me? Daniel didn't hesitate. Yes. She looked at him. That's not enough. I know. I don't know if I can ever forget what you did. I know. I don't know if I can ever fully trust you again. I know. She turned to him. Then why are you still here? Because love doesn't leave just because it's not welcomed, he said quietly. It stays, and it waits, and it proves itself. She looked away. He didn't touch her, didn't push, didn't beg. He just sat there, being present, being patient. That night after he left, Mercy cried, not because she was hurt, but because she was tired of fighting what her heart already knew. 3 months later, Daniel was shot. It wasn't dramatic, not an ambush, not a big attack, just a reminder that his world was still dangerous. He survived. When Mercy got the call, she dropped everything and ran to the hospital. She stood by his bed, shaking. You're not allowed to die, she said through tears. Not after everything. He looked at her weakly. Is that an order? She nodded. Yes. He reached for her hand. She didn't pull away. That was the moment things truly changed. After that, Daniel made a final decision. He stepped down from direct control of the most dangerous parts of his organization. He handed power to people he trusted. He kept the legal businesses, and he walked away from the rest. It cost him influence, it cost him fear, but it gave him something else: peace and a future. One evening, almost a year after their reunion, Daniel stood in Mercy's living room. The twins were asleep. Mercy was tired. He looked nervous. "I'm not asking you to marry me," he said suddenly. She blinked. "That's an interesting way to start a conversation." He smiled faintly. "I'm asking you to let me be your partner. Nothing more, nothing less. No promises I can't prove, no vows, no pressure." She studied him. "And if I say no, then I'll still be here, just a little farther away." She was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "Stay." He looked at her. "Stay?" "Yes," she said. "Let's try, slowly, carefully, like two people who know what it costs to be wrong." He nodded. "That's all I want." They didn't rush. They didn't pretend the past didn't exist. They built something new on top of it, something honest. One night, months later, Mercy watched Daniel read a bedtime story to the twins. He used funny voices. The children laughed. She leaned against the doorframe and realized something. Love didn't come back the same way. It came back wiser, stronger, more careful. Later, when the twins were asleep, she sat beside him on the couch. "You know," she said, "if you ever lie to me again, I will disappear. And this time, you will never find me." He looked at her seriously. "I believe you." She smiled faintly. "Good." Years later, people would say the Korean mafia boss changed, that he became quieter, that he stopped ruling by fear, that he became human. But the truth was simple. He had been given a second chance, and he had been smart enough not to waste it. Mercy never forgot what he did, but she chose to believe what he became. And sometimes, that is the bravest kind of love. Some mistakes can destroy lives, but real change is not proven by words, tears, or promises. It is proven by time, consistency, and actions. And forgiveness is not forgetting. It is choosing to build something new with someone who finally learned how not to break it. Now, a question for you. If you were Mercy, would you have given Daniel a second chance? And finally, if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who loves deep, emotional romance stories like this one. Your support helps this channel grow and brings you even more powerful stories.